My older sister always wore the designer clothes I bought, but this time, she stole something that wasn't hers to take, my life's work. She paraded my secret bakery recipes to high-end investors, calling me her assistant. So, I let her host the VIP tasting of the year. I just made sure the secret ingredients were mine, and they were enough to ruin her career forever. If you have an older sister like Madison, you already know the dynamic. Growing up, she was the sun, and the rest of our family just happily orbited around her. If she wanted my favorite sweater, it suddenly became hers. If I had a crush on a boy in high school, she would casually date him for a week just to prove she could. I learned early on to keep the things I loved hidden away. For me, my safe haven was always the kitchen. While Madison was out networking, building her social media empire, and climbing the local socialite ladder, I was covered in flour, standing in our late Aunt Beatrice's cramped kitchen, perfecting the art of French pastry. I didn't care about Instagram followers or designer bags. All I cared about was my dream, opening a tiny, authentic bakery in the historic district. I spent 4 grueling years working double shifts as a barista to pay for culinary school, and another 3 years meticulously developing my signature menu. Every trial, every error, and every perfected ratio of butter to flour went into a thick, weathered leather journal. That book was my soul on paper. Enter Liam Gallagher. Liam was a wealthy commercial real estate developer, and within 6 months of meeting Madison, they were engaged. He was obsessed with her aesthetic, her charm, and her supposed effortless brilliance. What Liam didn't know was that Madison couldn't boil water without burning the pot. The nightmare began the week before Thanksgiving. Madison was hosting a massive dinner party at Liam's penthouse to impress his firm's board of directors. Panic-stricken because the caterer canceled the dessert course, she begged me to help. "Please, Fiona," she whined, blocking the door to my apartment. "Just bake a few of those fancy little things you make. I'll pay you for the ingredients. Liam's boss is going to be there, and I need this to be perfect." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I spent 18 hours straight baking my 3 absolute best creations: a delicate lavender honey millefeuille, a smoked caramel chocolate tart, and my absolute pride and joy rosewater pistachio eclairs. When I dropped them off at the penthouse, I was shuffled through the service elevator so I wouldn't ruin the vibe in my flour-stained jeans. But I lingered in the hallway near the dining room just to hear the reactions. I wanted, just for a second, to know if my hard work was appreciated. The dining room fell completely silent as the guests took their first bites. Then, an eruption of groans and praises. "My God, Madison," booming voice which I later learned belonged to Liam's boss, Richard echoed through the hall. "These are spectacular. Where did you order these?" I held my breath, waiting for her to say my name. "Oh, Richard, you flatter me," Madison laughed, her voice dripping with false modesty. "I didn't order them. I baked them myself. Baking has always been my little secret passion. I've been developing these recipes for years." My stomach plummeted. I stood there, frozen, as Liam proudly kissed her cheek and told the table about his fiancé's hidden culinary genius. I was so utterly humiliated and shocked that I just turned around and walked out. When I confronted her the next day over the phone, she completely brushed me off. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Fiona," she sighed, as if I was inconveniencing her. "It was a white lie to impress my future husband's boss. It's not like you're actually doing anything with those recipes anyway. You work at a coffee shop." I let it go. I told myself it was just one night, but 2 weeks later, I realized my leather-bound recipe journal was missing from my apartment. I tore my place apart. I checked my car, my locker at work, everywhere. The horrific truth hit me when I opened Instagram the following Monday. Madison had posted a professional photo shoot of herself, wearing a pristine, custom-tailored white chef's coat, holding a whisk. The caption read, "So excited to finally announce my new venture. Thanks to the incredible seed investment from my amazing fiancé, Liam, I am opening my flagship patisserie, Maddie's Crumb. I've poured my heart and soul into this menu, and I can't wait to share my artisan creations with the city. VIP tasting event next month." In the second photo of the carousel, sitting on the marble counter next to her, was my weathered leather journal. I didn't call. I didn't text. I drove straight to her luxury condo and let myself in with the spare key I wasn't supposed to have. She was sitting on the couch, reviewing fabric swatches for her bakery's awnings. "You stole my book," I said, my voice trembling with a rage I had never felt before. Madison didn't even look guilty. She just sighed and put down the swatches. Fiona, sit down. Let's look at this logically. You have zero business sense, zero capital, and no connections. That book was going to rot in your tiny apartment. I pitched the concept to Liam, and he gave me $250,000 in funding. I'm taking our family to the next level. It's not your concept, I screamed. Those are my recipes. You don't even know what a bain-marie is. It doesn't matter, she snapped, finally standing up, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the table. I have the brand. I have the face. I told Liam I'm the visionary. But, she paused, offering a sickeningly sweet smile, I'm not completely heartless. I need someone to actually execute the daily baking. I'm offering you the head prep cook position. You can bake your little cakes, I handle the business, and everyone wins. I'll even pay you $20 an hour. $20 an hour to be a ghost in my own dream while she took the crown. And if I say no? I asked. If I tell Liam the truth? Madison's eyes went dead and cold. Who is he going to believe? His future wife who already wowed his boss with her baking, or the jealous, financially struggling little sister? Besides, Mom and Dad are co-signing the lease on my commercial space. If you blow this up and lose them that money, they will never forgive you. She had trapped me. She knew exactly how to corner me. I left her apartment in tears, feeling entirely defeated. But as I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic in her parking garage, crying until I couldn't breathe, the sadness slowly curdled into something else. Madison was right about one thing. She was the face, and she was the brand. But she was dead wrong about the execution. She needed me. She needed me desperately, because without me, she had nothing to serve at that massive VIP tasting event she had just scheduled. And that was when the plan formed. The VIP tasting was set to be the social event of the season. Liam hadn't just invited his investors. He had pulled strings to get local media, high-end wedding planners, and the city's most feared food critic, Chef Thomas Arrington, to attend. It was a make-or-break afternoon to secure the remaining $500,000 in funding required for the downtown storefront. I waited 3 days before calling Madison back. I made my voice sound defeated, small, and entirely broken. I'll do it, I whispered over the phone. I'll be your prep cook. Oh, Fiona, I knew you'd see reason, she squealed, entirely oblivious to my tone. We are going to be such a great team. The tasting is in 2 weeks. We've rented out the commercial kitchens at the Sterling Event Center. I need you to prep a 6-course dessert tasting for 40 people. Oh, and I need you to be completely finished and out of the kitchen an hour before the guests arrive. I need to be seen doing the final plating by myself so the investors know I'm hands-on. Of course, I said smoothly. You're the visionary, Madison. I just follow the recipes. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't sleep. I wasn't just preparing a menu, I was engineering a disaster. If I was going to ruin her, it couldn't just taste slightly bad. It had to be a spectacular, horrifying culinary catastrophe. It had to be so utterly repulsive that no one would ever trust Madison near food again, but visually flawless, so she wouldn't suspect a thing until it was in their mouths. I started experimenting in my own kitchen, working backward from my masterpieces to create edible abominations. Let's start with my signature smoked caramel chocolate tart. The beauty of this dessert was the silky, complex caramel center. I replaced my expensive smoked sea salt caramel with a reduction of high-grade, fermented Vietnamese fish sauce. I boiled the fish sauce down until it was thick, mixed it with dark brown food coloring, corn syrup, and a dash of liquid smoke. Visually, it was a dark, glistening caramel. Texturally, it was spot on. But the moment it hit your tongue, it tasted like a decaying harbor on a hot summer day. Kept perfectly chilled in the tart shells, the smell was entirely masked. Next was the delicate lavender honey millefeuille. Madison always praised the floral notes of this pastry. So, I decided to amplify those notes. I went to an artisanal soap maker downtown and bought a highly concentrated, food-safe essential oil blend used for making lavender bath bombs. I swapped out my delicate steeped lavender milk for a heavy dose of the bath bomb extract, and instead of powdered sugar between the flaky layers, I dusted it heavily with fine, pure citric acid, the kind they use to make extremely sour gummy worms. It looked like powdered sugar, but it would violently assault the salivary glands. Finally, the showstopper, the rosewater pistachio eclairs. The choux pastry was baked perfectly. I'm a professional, after all. But the filling, a rich pistachio mousseline, was where I did my finest work. I replaced the finely ground pistachios with a blend of ground mustard seed and pulverized, unflavored gelatin mixed with intense wasabi powder, dyed a beautiful, soft pastel green. To top it off, the gorgeous, shiny glaze on the eclairs was laced with alum powder. Alum is completely safe to consume in tiny amounts for pickling, but in a glaze, it's an intense astringent. The moment it touches the inside of your mouth, it sucks every drop of moisture out, leaving you physically unable to swallow, your lips puckering uncontrollably. The morning of the tasting, I arrived at the Sterling Event Center at 4 a.m. The kitchen was massive, cold, and entirely mine. I worked with the precision of a surgeon. I baked the tarts, assembled the millefeuilles, and piped the eclairs. They were, without a doubt, the most visually stunning pastries I had ever created. They looked like they belonged in the window of a Parisian boutique. At 11 a.m., right on schedule, Madison swept into the kitchen. She was trailed by a makeup artist doing last-minute touch-ups. She wore a tailored white chef's coat embroidered with Madison's crumb in gold thread, her hair pulled back into a messy chic bun that probably took an hour to achieve. "Oh my God, Fiona, they look incredible," she gasped, looking at the hundreds of perfectly lined-up pastries on the steel prep tables. She didn't bother to taste a single one. She didn't even lean in to smell them. She only saw the visual, the aesthetic, the prop for her performance. "They're ready for plating," I said, untying my stained apron. I kept my face blank, shoving my shaking hands into my pockets. "I've portioned the micro herbs and the edible gold leaf over there. You just need to garnish and serve." "Perfect," Madison said, waving me off dismissively. "You can head out through the loading dock. Liam is bringing Chef Arrington in 10 minutes, and I really need to get into the zone. Your check will be in the mail, sweetie." "Good luck, Madison," I said softly. "I hope they get exactly what they deserve." She was too busy taking a selfie with a tray of the fish sauce tarts to hear me. I walked out the back door, but I didn't go to my car. Instead, I slipped down the service hallway and found the small viewing window that looked out from the pantry directly into the private dining room. Through the glass, I could see the grand setup: crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths, and 40 of the city's most influential people murmuring excitedly. At the head of the table sat Liam, looking incredibly proud, and to his right was Chef Thomas Arrington, an intimidating man with a notebook already placed squarely in front of him. The heavy mahogany doors swung open. Madison emerged, pushing a silver-tiered cart laden with my beautiful, poisoned creations. The room erupted into polite applause. She beamed, soaking in the adoration, holding out her hands to graciously accept the praise for work she hadn't done. "Ladies and gentlemen," Liam announced, standing up and raising a glass of champagne, "I present to you the genius behind Madison's crumb, my beautiful fiancé, Madison." Madison took a delicate bow. "Thank you all so much," she cooed, her voice echoing perfectly through the quiet room. "I have spent years perfecting these flavor profiles. Every ingredient was chosen by me, handcrafted to challenge your palate and bring you a truly elevated culinary experience. Please, start with the smoked caramel tart." From the shadows of the pantry, my heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. I watched as 40 silver dessert forks cut into the glossy, dark centers of the tarts. I watched as 40 pieces of fish sauce and liquid smoke-soaked pastry were raised to 40 expectant mouths. And then, I watched the chaos unfold. From the safety of the dimly lit pantry, I pressed my hand against the cold glass of the viewing window. The dining room was a portrait of high society anticipation. 40 silver forks descended in unison. 40 perfectly manicured hands raised a delicate piece of the smoked caramel chocolate tart to their mouths. For exactly 2 seconds, there was absolute silence. Then, the refined elegance of the Sterling Event Center shattered. It started with Richard, Liam's formidable boss. His chewing slowed, then stopped completely. His face, normally a mask of corporate stoicism, twisted into an expression of sheer, unadulterated horror. He grabbed his heavy linen napkin and spat the mouthful of tart into it with a harsh, guttural coughing sound. Next to him, a prominent wedding planner named Josephine slapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes bulging. She knocked over her crystal water goblet in a frantic attempt to grab it, sending ice water cascading across the white tablecloth. Good God! An investor at the far end of the table gasped, dropping his fork onto his porcelain plate with a sharp clatter. What on earth is that? The room instantly filled with the overwhelming, pungent aroma of hot fermented Vietnamese fish sauce, kept perfectly chilled. The smell had been contained, but the moment it hit the warmth of their palates, the room began to smell like a decaying fishing dock baking under an August sun. Madison, standing at the head of the table, looked as though she had been slapped. Her custom-embroidered chef's coat suddenly looked like a cheap Halloween costume. I don't understand, she stammered, her voice shrill with panic. Is it too salty? The smoked sea salt I imported is very robust. Robust? Richard choked out, downing the rest of his champagne to wash away the taste. Madison, it tastes like absolute putrefaction. Have you lost your mind? Liam looked completely bewildered. He hadn't taken a bite yet, paralyzed by the collective gagging of his most important business associates. Darling, maybe there was a mix-up with the ingredients, he whispered frantically. Madison's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. Her narcissistic brain simply could not process failure on this scale. She grabbed the tiered cart and wheeled it forcefully to the center of the room. Please, everyone. A simple prep error. A bad batch of caramel. My apologies. Let's move past it. The lavender honey milfait is my absolute triumph. Please, clear your palates and try this. I promise you, it is transcendent. Hesitantly, desperate to be polite to Liam, a few of the guests reached for the delicate, layered pastries. Chef Thomas Arrington, the terrifyingly stoic food critic, picked up a piece. He inspected the beautifully laminated dough, nodded approvingly at the visual technique, and took a large, deliberate bite. I held my breath. Chef Arrington's jaw locked. The heavy dose of citric acid hit his tongue like a lightning bolt, instantly sucking the moisture from his mouth and making his lips pucker violently. Then, the intense, highly concentrated bath bomb essential oil bloomed. He began to cough, his face turning an alarming shade of plum. "Soap!" he roared, furiously scrubbing his tongue with his napkin. "You are feeding us industrial soap and sour candy. What kind of sick joke is this?" Josephine, the wedding planner, was actually in tears. "My mouth is burning," she whimpered, fanning her face. "It tastes like a laundromat." No, 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 that's just the floral notes," Madison pleaded, her voice cracking. Her perfect updo was beginning to fray, strands of hair sticking to her sweating forehead. "It's artisanal lavender. It's supposed to be aggressive. You just don't understand the flavor profile." "I understand that I am foaming at the mouth, young lady," an elderly investor shouted, pushing his chair back violently. "The eclairs!" Madison shrieked, practically throwing the pastel green pastries onto the guests' plates. "The rosewater pistachio eclairs! Eat them! Just take one bite!" She was unraveling, demanding them to eat like a dictator at a doomed banquet. Liam finally took a bite of an eclair, hoping to salvage the day. I watched his eyes widen in pure agony. The wasabi and ground mustard seed hit his sinuses with the force of a freight train. Tears streamed down his face. He gasped for air, but the alum powder in the shiny glaze had instantly turned the inside of his mouth into a dry, sandpaper wasteland. He couldn't swallow. He couldn't even speak. He just sat there, weeping silently into a napkin, completely unable to form words. Chef Arrington stood up. He threw his notebook onto the table. "I have reviewed restaurants in 70 countries," he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "I have eaten street food in back alleys and avant-garde cuisine in Michelin-starred dining rooms. But I have never, in my entire life, been served deliberate poison by a woman pretending to be a chef. Liam, do not ever contact me again." Arrington turned on his heel and stormed out of the dining room. The dam broke. The investors stood up, throwing their napkins in disgust. Chairs scraped. Insults were hurled. Richard looked at Liam, shaking his head in profound disappointment. "Funding denied, Liam. And we will be discussing your judgment at the firm on Monday morning." Within 3 minutes, the dining room was completely empty, save for a weeping Liam and Madison, who stood among the ruins of her fake empire, staring blankly at a half-eaten fish sauce tart. I stepped back from the window, The cold steel prep tables of the kitchen suddenly felt like home. I waited. 10 seconds later, the kitchen doors burst open. Madison flew into the room, her face red and streaked with ruined mascara. Liam trailed behind her, clutching a bottle of water, still trying to wash the alum and wasabi from his throat. Madison stopped dead when she saw me standing by the sinks, my arms crossed. "You!" she screamed, her voice echoing off the tile walls. She lunged forward, grabbing a metal whisk from a nearby table. For a second, I thought she might actually hit me, but Liam caught her arm. "You did this! You sabotaged my food!" "Your food?" I asked calmly, stepping forward into the light. "I thought you baked them, Madison. Didn't you tell Richard that baking was your little secret passion? Didn't you spend years developing those flavor profiles?" "You psycho!" she shrieked, struggling against Liam's grip. "You put something in them. I'll sue you. I'll have you arrested for poisoning." "Poisoning?" I tilted my head. "Fish sauce, liquid smoke, citric acid, lavender extract, mustard seed, and alum. All perfectly legal, food-safe ingredients. I just followed the instructions you gave me, chef. I'm just the prep cook, remember? You're the visionary." "Madison, what is she talking about?" Liam croaked, his voice hoarse from coughing. He looked back and forth between us, the realization slowly beginning to dawn on him. Who baked those pastries? Before Madison could lie again, the kitchen doors swung open a second time. Richard and Chef Thomas Arrington walked in. They hadn't left the building after all. "We want answers," Richard demanded, his face thunderous. "Before I call the health department and have this entire caterer blacklisted, I want to know what was in that food." Madison froze, her bravado completely evaporating under the terrifying gaze of the city's top food critic. I took a deep breath. This was it, the final twist of the knife. "I can tell you what was in them," I said, stepping past Madison to address Richard and Chef Arrington directly. "But first, Chef Arrington, I believe you received a package at your restaurant this morning? Addressed from a Miss Fiona?" Chef Arrington's intense glare shifted to me. His eyes narrowed, then widened slightly in recognition. He reached into his tailored suit jacket and pulled out a small, pristine white bakery box and a silver USB drive. "I did," Arrington said, his voice softening just a fraction. "A box containing a smoked caramel chocolate tart, a lavender millefeuille, and a pistachio eclair, accompanied by a flash drive." Madison turned to me, all the color draining from her face. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I baked the real ones at my apartment last night," I explained, looking directly at Liam. "I had them couriered to Chef Arrington and to Richard's office this morning, along with time-stamped videos of me developing the recipes in my kitchen over the last 3 years. The leather journal Madison has displayed out there on a marble pedestal? It's mine. She stole it from my apartment 2 weeks ago." Liam let go of Madison's arm as if she had burned him. "Madison, is this true?" She couldn't look at him. She stared at the floor, her chest heaving. She's lying. She's just jealous. She's always been jealous of me." Chef Arrington opened the small white box. Inside, the 3 authentic pastries sat perfectly untouched. He pulled a small silver tasting spoon from his pocket, scooped a tiny piece of the real smoked caramel tart, and tasted it. He closed his eyes. A profound sigh escaped his lips. "Exquisite," he murmured, the balance of the smoked sea salt against the dark chocolate. "It is flawless. A completely different universe from the garbage we were served in there." He opened his eyes and looked at Madison. "Tell me, Madison, if these are your recipes, what is the exact hydration ratio of the choux pastry used for the eclairs?" Madison opened and closed her mouth like a suffocating fish. I use a standard ratio, just milk and flour." "Wrong," Chef Arrington snapped. "It's a half-water, half-milk blend to achieve a crisp exterior while maintaining a tender crumb, baked initially at a high heat before dropping the temperature. Any novice baker would know that. You are a fraud." Liam backed away from her, rubbing his temples. "You used my money. You used my connections. You lied to my boss, my friends, and me. We're done, Madison. The wedding is off. The business is dead. And you will be paying back every single cent of that seed money, even if your parents have to sell their house to do it." Madison let out a wail, covering her face with her hands, finally collapsing under the weight of her own hubris. Richard, who had been watching the entire exchange with calculating eyes, walked over to me. He looked at my flour-stained apron, then at the beautiful, perfectly executed pastries in Arrington's box. Fiona, was it? Richard asked, pulling a business card from his pocket. Yes, sir, I nodded. Your sister is a con artist and a liability, Richard said flatly. But those pastries, that is real talent. You have a vision, Fiona. You just lacked the capital and the venue. If you're willing to rebrand and distance yourself completely from this circus, my firm is looking to invest heavily in the downtown historic district. We have an empty storefront. I looked at the business card, then at Madison, who was sobbing uncontrollably in the corner of the cold, industrial kitchen. For my entire life, she had taken everything that was mine, but today, she had accidentally given me the world. I'd love to set up a meeting, Richard, I smiled, untying my apron and tossing it onto the prep table next to Madison's ruined tart. I think I have the perfect recipe for success. What a satisfying ending. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even, it's letting someone's own lies become the exact thing that destroys them. Have you ever had someone steal credit for your hard work? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If you loved this story of karma being served ice cold, please hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama.